Good morning, dear friends. Welcome to our live broadcast for Conscious Living. We still have 1 minute to the beginning of our lecture. So if you are joining us, welcome. Good morning once more. Please feel free to say hello if you are joining us. Good morning, Mommy. My mom is the first one to say good morning. Excellent. It is 11 o'clock. Good morning, Iracema. Nice to see you. Good morning, Sandra. Welcome. Good morning, Michelle. I miss you. I miss everybody. Sheila, good morning. All right. So, clock sharp. So let us start with a reading for this morning while people are joining. The reading is from the book Living Spring, and I just opened it on chapter 73, Fraternal Encouragement. And according to his riches in glory, my God will meet all your needs through Christ Jesus. Do not think you are alone in the purifying struggle, for the Lord will meet all our needs. Look up to the Almighty, but from time to time look behind you. If you're in a position to serve, then do so and then press on. Remember, your brothers and sisters who live in indigence without any resources. Think about the mothers and fathers who must listen to their children crying with no means of drying their tears. Observe the sick whose circumstances have taken them from their homes. Stop for a moment and give a friendly look to a homeless child. Contemplate the anguish of those who are mentally unbalanced, confused, in the eclipse of reason. Think of the physically disabled, shackled to dolorous immobility. Think about the maternal hearts tormented by the disharmony and lack of bread in their home. From time to time, stop your hurried pace in order to help the blind who walk in darkness. Then you might find that your own suffering vanishes before your very eyes. If you have arms to help and a mind capable of reflecting on the good of your fellow beings, then you are truly better than a king who may possess a world of gold but is afraid to help another person. When you manage to overcome your afflictions in order to create joy for others, then people's happiness will seek you out wherever you may be to bring you happiness of your own. May infirmity and sadness never impede your journey. It is better for death to take us while we are hard at work than for us to wait for it in an easy chair. My brothers and sisters, light a new flame of encouragement in your soul and press on. Be an angel of fraternity to those who follow you, dominated by affliction, ignorance, and suffering. When you plant the joy of living in the hearts around you, then very soon the flowers and fruit of your own sowing will enrich your pathway. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful, incredible page, and how appropriate it is for today's day. We are going to do a quick prayer. I just would like to acknowledge Jose from Manila and Kanjidu. Happy Father's Day to everyone. Good morning, Juan. So let's take a moment just to ask our Father to bless us all today, guiding our thoughts and our mind, and as always, our feelings as we deliver the lessons of today, and blessing us all, physically apart but united in hearts and in the desire to learn and to grow towards enlightenment and peace. May the Lord be with all of us today and always, and so be it. All right, very good. We are going to start. Let me bring in our PowerPoint in. And today, give me 1 second so I can figure this out. Here we are. Okay, so our talk today is Soul Searching. It is time to move forward. This is a talk that we did very recently in the U.S. Spiritist Conference, the annual conference for the U.S. Spiritist Federation. And the topic of the conference, which is available on the YouTube channel of the U.S. Spiritist Federation, the topic was Soul Searching the Technological Era. In our particular talk, which was the opening one, was Soul Searching. It is time to move forward. So we're going to revisit this talk. We had only 30 minutes that day, so we're going to go a little slower today, exploring a little further the concepts that we brought that day. So we're here enjoying today the ability to be together and to have this interaction because of the amazing power of technology. And technology has evolved at a very, very fast pace. Sometimes, I don't know about you, but I feel like, no matter how hard I try, it's so difficult to keep up with all the new things and apps and platforms and I don't even know the terminology to appropriately state what I'm trying to say. But the fact is that sometimes I have the feeling that although I try very hard to keep up with all these advances, only reincarnating, I will have a real chance of catching up with what is going on. I need a new body, I need a new brain, a new hardware in order to keep up with all these advances. So the question is for us in this moment is, how have we gotten here to this place where we are enjoying the incredible advances of technology, right? So we did through progress. Progress, we learn in Spiritism, is a law that's powerful. It is an undeterred force that has taken us from our primitive days when we were hunting and struggling to survive to what we know today to be this civilized and technological world. And how did we get here? We get here through incarnation, right? Which is a concept that we find in the Spirits book. Incarnation, we learned there that the spirits are led to perfection through incarnation by being here in the material world and by undergoing the vicissitudes, by undergoing the trials, the tests, and the challenges. That's how we evolve. But also through reincarnation. Reincarnation is what yields to the progressive improvement of the spirit. We also learn that our incarnations are linked to one another. And this is how reincarnation allows us to continue to progress. So every single thing that we learn, every experience that we have that has importance, that has meaning, and usually attached to an emotional experience, it becomes imprinted, it becomes part of our archive of experiences, which is stored in our spiritual body, which is called perispirit. As we go to one life to another life, or one incarnation to another one, we take with ourselves the learnings, everything that we have learned, as well as our mistakes, our errors. And as we reincarnate, we are invited then to learn from the new experiences that life will grant us at that given time, And also we are giving a chance to make amendments and seek to reestablish harmony and peace for the mistakes that we have committed in the past. So God has established certain laws that helps the human spirit in this journey from a state of ignorance and unawareness when we are first created to a state of plenitude or full awareness. So this is the process in which we evolve. We are able to progress, and we have done so coming from, again, a very primitive state to where we find ourselves right now. So we have no doubt traveled like significantly. We have progressed. There is no question about that. So we have, for example, ascended in the scale of worlds. In Spiritism, we learned that there are many different types of worlds with different levels of awareness. We have evolved from a primitive world to a world of trials and expiations where intellectual progress is a fact. So we have taken a step uh, forward in progress, and intelligence continues to undeniably unfold in front of our eyes. But the question that we have to ask ourselves is, in face of everything that we see, are we truly civilized or not? So let me see if I can just get this. We'll leave the good morning welcome on the screen. So the question is, are we truly civilized at this point? What does a true civilization will look like? So can we, for example, call ourselves civilized when we still see in our world people struggling so much suffering still present in our society, and people still unable or struggling to ask what we um, think to be very basic questions, but perhaps they are not so basic questions. Questions like, who am I? What am I doing here? What comes next? What is the purpose of life? So progress, there is no question, has taken place. And today in our world, we experience the benefits and the joys of material well-being. There's no doubt we are enjoying material comfort that we didn't have at the time that we were living in the caves. Sometimes people question about progress, but all it takes is a quick look to see how we have progressed, actually both intellectually and morally. So if we look at history, we can say that labor, for instance, has been dignified by much more compassionate laws, fair laws that have been introduced in the workforce. We can see that women have gained much broader access to education, although not entirely in this world yet, but no doubt we have a lot more access than we did one day. Electricity has really easy the brutal labor work of yesterday. We have developed vaccines, we have developed anesthesia that allow us to undergo surgeries and interventions without pain. We have certainly developed and evolved in our means of communication, and today's interaction is an example of that, which has really, really shortened the distances and make the world shrunk in some ways. More recently, we have been able to do some really, really amazing things. So we are able today, for instance, to observe an image that is 55 million light years from Earth, like the environment of a black hole whose mass is 6.5 billion times of the sun. And this image is found in the center of a massive galaxy out there called Messier 87. So I'm throwing out these numbers, which I have no concept what they even mean, right? But not only we have traveled outwards, we have also been able to travel inwards and into the microscopic world. So today, in this last decade, we have seen tremendous advances in the area of scientist ability of like modified genomes, for example, preventing and treating diseases. So as we hear all of that and look into all of that, right, we ask again, is this what civilization looks like? And so we will see that besides the amazing advancements of technology and all these amazing things that I have just shared with you, we also have things like the CDC report that came out in the year 2017, speaking to us about suicide and telling us, for example, that suicide was the second cause of death among individuals ages 10 to 35 years of age. Second cause of death, just behind accidents. And the fourth cause of that death among individuals of 35 to 54 years of age. And not only that, there were twice as many suicides in the United States than there were homicides in that given year. So it seems that for the ones who are undergoing moral suffering, science does not quite have yet adequate resources to solve or to answer some very important questions. How can we understand the contradictions that we see in today's world? A humanity that prides itself for all these incredible advancements and development of its intelligence, and at the same time still experience so much darkness, anguish, fear, and disorders like depression and anxiety. What is the missing piece? What are we missing here? A humanity that is connected like we are right now through technology, and yet it seems to be so illiterate yet in the science of love. So we are going to try to figure out what is the missing piece, what is missing to us at this point. And to do that, we are going to tap into question 793 of the Spirit's book. It's one of my favorite questions, and it talks about the signs of a complete civilization. And in this question, the spirits are going to remind us that we will recognize a complete civilization by its moral progress. So that's the first important idea for us to think about. You believe yourselves to be very advanced because you have made great discovery and wonderful inventions, and because you are better situated and better clothed than the primitives. However, you will only have the right to truly call yourself civilized when you have finally banished the vices that dishonor society, and when you finally live as brothers and sisters by practicing love. And it will finish with the statement, until then, you are really no more than enlightened cultures that have only passed through the first phase of civilization. So our situation right now is one of civilized cultures who have only passed by the actually enlightened cultures who have only passed through the very first phase of civilization. So enlightenment, culture, intelligence makes us half civilized. Let's put it this way. We passed the first phase. The second phase is still in the making, and we will be completely civilized when we are recognized by our moral development. Well, that brings me to a little story that I will share with you, because this definition by the spirits, it is a huge blow to our egos. And there's this little story of a man who really wanted to know everything that could be known about life in the universe. And he was in Europe, and he had a master at the time that was guiding him and orienting him to this process of of growth. And so he one day he asked his master, and he said, "Master, I would like to know, what is it that I need to do if I want to learn as much as possible in this lifetime? What is it that I need to do?" And the master told him, "Listen, in order to learn everything that you can, you need to open your eyes as wide open as possible." He was a little puzzled by the answer because it was such a short and simplistic answer. But he went on thinking about it, and after a while, it made sense to him because you know, if you want to learn something, you need to be able to see. You need to be able to observe as far as possible and as deep as possible. So he was content with this answer. He went on with his life. But like, many of our lives, his life also took a turn. He ended up going a little bit of a different way. And now he finds himself in a different part of the world, and now he has a different master. And it occurred to him to ask this new master the very same question. And the master, after thinking for a little bit, he said to him, "Listen, if you want to learn everything that you can about the world, everything that exists, all you need to do is to close your eyes very tight for a long period of time." So what appears to be these very two contradictory answers actually are not. And Spiritism explain how they are not opposite to one another, but they actually complement one another. So in order to do that, we need to understand Spiritism brings to us the concept that in order for civilization to be achieved, it is necessary for intelligence and morality to work as synergistic wings of equal power. So again, in order for civilization to be achieved, it is necessary for intelligence and morality to work as synergistic wings of equal power. But if we think about development, it seems that it is just natural that at first we are going to look out to understand the world, just like the first master said. But then later on, as we mature and become more aware, we will realize that what we see outside, the world outside, the reality outside of us, is a pure and perfect reflection of our inner realities. So now it's time to close our eyes and to look within. When we look at the law of progress in Spiritism, it tells us that progress is not realized simultaneously in all senses. It also tells us that during a period of time, the spirit may advance in knowledge and then in morality. The moral progress is a consequence of intellectual progress, but not always follows it immediately. So we are learning here how this is in line with the story told by the master. In addition to that, we are going to learn that about the path for the development of intelligence and morality. So first, we incarnate. As we incarnate and we are dealing with the struggles of material life, that's how our intelligence is developed. It's easy to think about this. When you are facing an obstacle, when you are facing a challenging situation, you need to use your intelligence to find solutions. So obstacles actually work in favor of development of our intelligence. As we face an obstacle, we actually need to access some extra neurons in order to come up with a solution. So we incarnate to develop our intelligence. As the intelligence develops, we also have the development of our moral sense. Moral sense is defined by our ability to distinguish what is good from what's bad, what is in benefit of my peace from what is against my peace. And as we develop both intelligence and morality, we also develop our freedom, including freedom of choice. And as we have more and more freedom of choice, we also have an increase in our responsibility. This process that we are putting here in terms of the evolution of the immortal spirit is the same process that we see as we are developing and growing in within one lifetime. At one day we are a child with not much discernment, not much reason. We grow up, we learn things, we become more intelligent, more able to reason. We also develop a better sense to distinguish what serves us from what not serves us. We are given from teenager years on more freedom to choose. And as we evolve into adulthood, we become fully responsible for our choices. You can take that from a lifetime and put that into perspective of the life of the spirit. And assisting us in this process, we have God's laws. So God's laws are laws. They include laws such as the law of action and reaction, or the law of cause and effect. They will help us to in dealing with the facts of our choices, help us to recognize when we have committed an error, a mistake, and will help redirecting us to the path of balance and harmony. So today we are basically harvesting the natural consequences of the imbalance that we have experienced between intellectuality and morality. The challenges that we face, that our humanity face, including this pandemic and many others, have to do are related to the fact that we have progressed very rapidly and substantially intellectually, but we lag in morality. And if we go further into the law of progress, and this is also in the Spirit's book, but in Genesis, we are going to learn that, most of our progress happens at a very slow and imperceptible way. And it is a result of the natural force of things. But when society does not move towards the divine goals set by providence, God causes what the Spirit says to be a physical or moral jolt that will assist humanity to move forward. So, yes, we progress slowly, uh, pushed forward by the natural force of things, but God also has an agenda, believe it or not. And there is a time where certain things needs to happen. And when God realizes we're not moving as fast as we should, then God will shake things a little bit in order to assist us with our progress. So from time to time, abrupt changes occur, producing a more rapid ascendant movement, which by clear signs makes out a progressive period of humanity. And this happens every time that humankind is mature enough to ascend a degree on the scale of evolution. One can say that the time set by God has then come. So when we are ready, when God deems us to be mature, these things will happen. Our foundation will be shaken to help us to take a step forward. And in Genesis, we're going to find a little bit more. It's going to say that it is then during these times very natural for people to not to perceive more than the momentary disorder and confusion that affects their material interests. Isn't that precisely what we are living right now at this moment? And the spirits are going to say, nevertheless, those who are able to raise their thoughts above their own individuality are able to admire the designs of providence, which always brings good out of bad. Such commotions and events are like storms and disturbances that sanitize the atmosphere after having disrupted it. So this is precisely what we are living right now. We are living the times. So sometimes people talk to us and they say, what's happening? What is going on? How do I understand this moment that we are living? And it's there, written in Genesis, explained by the Spirit. We are in a time of transformation, in a time where we are preparing to see a new earth, renew earth, a time where the planet is going through a betterment process, a period of transformation, where old ideas and paradigms that no longer serve to our help, happiness and more well-being will be substituted by new ideas, by a new vision, by a new moral, by a new ethic that will help us to move forward. So now is the time that for us to press forward and to make it happen. We are being invited, or perhaps not invited anymore. We are being told that we don't have an option but to make fraternity, love, and solidarity to reign among ourselves so that we can go beyond this first phase of civilization, so that we can go beyond the 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 well-being, the material well-being that we experience right now, and achieve a stage of a more civilized world where we will see those values not only in the books, not only in the codification, not only in our mouths as words that we speak, but as a reality that we live day in and day out. The question is, how do we do that? Or perhaps even more important, why haven't we done that yet? What is precluding us and stopping us from living this new paradigm? So I will talk a little bit about a paradigm that I believe one of the biggest solutions that we have and that perhaps we need to work on, which is something called otherization. Now, what is otherization? Otherization is the illusion of seeing someone as other than me. It happens every time that we put a material label to a human being or place a human being within the narrow boundaries of material perspective. On an overt and very concrete, easily identifiable and pretty extreme scale, otherization kills. And in this country, it has the names such as George Floyd and Matthew Shepard. On a smaller scale, and but not less problematic scale, it can be felt every time we put ourselves within labels that create separation and distinction. I am here and you are there. And it's not only the fact that we are putting labels on ourselves, but it is how deeply we identify with these labels to the point that these labels become our identities. So when I say, for instance, I am a spiritist, that means that spiritist becomes my identity, and everybody else who is not a spiritist becomes the other than me. When I say I am Christian, the same idea. When I say I am straight and you are not the straight, you are not straight like me, you are the other. If I am white, you are the other. If I am intelligent, you are the other. Meaning, when we place human beings into narrow material labels, we separate from one another. The other person becomes distinct from who I am. And beneath these labels, it is an implicit devaluation of the other. So attached to the labels, there is a worth that we put in that human being. So we will remain partially civilized until the day that we understand that there is no other. We are one spiritual family, and one cannot be defined without the other. This is what quantum physics tells us when it says that we are connected. We are connected. So whatever happens here today reverberates and is felt on the other side of the world. This is also what Spiritism tells us when it says that we were created to live together, cooperating and mutually assisting one another. This, my dear friends, is not an option. This is a law. It's the law of interconnectedness that gives meaning to our very existence. Our existence do not have meaning if we do not feel that we are an extension of one another. Now, I get it that this is a concept that is difficult to understand and even more so to feel. And life in this physical matter makes this very difficult because defines these physical boundaries that create, that enhance the illusion of separation, reinforcing the paradigm of otherization. Perhaps the easiest way that I can think of explaining this concept and helping us to understand how it applies to our lives is to think about the concept of families. So we are individualities in our own families, our blood families, right? So, however, there is in our families this sense of belonging together. So we even use like possessive pronouns to say my husband, my wife, my brother, my parents, right? And these pronouns, they affirm this sense of interconnectedness, of belonging together. So we care about our happiness, but we are also attuned, connected, and committed to the happiness of our family members in such a way that if something is happening to my brother, to my sister, to my parents, I am deeply affected by that, and I am committed to help them in being happy as well. So when we think about family under this perspective, yes, we are distinct, but we are together. We are connected. And isn't that precisely the concept that Jesus tried to teach us when in the Lord's Prayer, he started by saying, our Father who art in heaven. One family under God. So never in history, it seems to me more appropriate that we review some very basic concepts in Spiritism that day in, day out, we talk about them, but I'm not sure if we truly understand them. I am certainly reviewing them, which is that we are all divine beings, created equal, simple, ignorant, immortal beings, children of one and only one Father. So when I look at someone else and I'm looking from this perspective that I am a child of God and that person is my brother and my sister and we belong together in one family, then the only label that fits when I look at that person is here it is, a divine being, my brother, my sister, under God. Everything else, anything else that we think about that person is an illusion and it brings separation and distancing from me, distance between the two of us. It's hard. We don't quite feel in this way. So our underdeveloped moral wing, the prevalence is still of the instinct of the prevalence is still of the instinct of preservation uh, keeps us from having this experience of connectedness. And the instinct of preservation is the instinct that prevailed for so long as we try to survive, as we try to defend our lives, and that today it's still with us, very, very present and strong in our psyche. So this, the presence, the prevalence of this instinct in us, it prevents us from feeling the connectedness and fuel our tendency to seek always the best for us, many times in detriment of others. And it also prevents us from taking this more vertical flight and keeps us flying in this horizontal level of life without being able to truly take off in our advancement and in our enlightenment. The world is therefore convulsing, and humanity is being shaken in its foundation. It's time, my dear brothers and sisters, to move forward and to again make a change in the quality of our lives so that we can have a better and more fair and peaceful world. So, can you imagine if morality is on the forefront of our days? So, can you imagine for 1 second, one day when, for example, all the brilliant minds of the world will no longer compete but collaborate, will like join forces, share ideas for the betterment of the planet on an ongoing basis. Because these minds now they will understand that by helping a human being that is on the other side of the planet, in a very different culture, perhaps with a different belief system, in a different skin color, um, means to help the whole humanity. There is no disconnection. Can you imagine the day that, and I truly, truly love this idea, that the paradigm of charity changes from, okay, I am someone who have more, and that person over there has less, and because I have more and he has less, I am going to give because this is somewhat the thing that is right thing to do, and I have more, and I feel the obligation to give to the one who have less. So the day that charity goes from this paradigm of I have and he doesn't have to a paradigm where the paradigm that we find in our families. When I help my brother or I help my mother or my father, I don't think of that as a charity. They are an extension of myself. We belong together. It's just the natural thing to do because they are an extension of me. So there will be one day where we will be helping each other, not from this paradigm that of charity that is present right now, but it's just going to be the natural thing to do because every single human life is valued, and that I understand that my happiness is very deeply interconnected and intertwined to the happiness of every single individual that is next to me and that is sharing this life with me. So this day will come for sure, and it's going to come through the hands of education. But as the Spirit says, not the education that we think often through the books. We refer in the education that will form characters and will supply the new generation with a deeper understanding of the meaning of life, as well as with a moral fiber that will help them to guide progress in the right direction. Now, good education requires good teachers. And good teachers are not perfect teachers, but people who are committed to their own education and they understand that the most effective way of teaching is not by doing what I'm doing right now, talking, but it is by modeling. Therefore, the idea of the regeneration does not belong for the future, it belongs to the present, it belongs to each one of us at this present moment. And technology will become then a very positive force the day that it is driven by educated souls. It's important that we also realize that education and instruction are two separate entities. Um, I believe that I'm talking to, I mean, all the people I see here, to instructed individuals, people who have a good understanding actually of what spirituality and morality are. But more is needed, more than this cognitive understanding is needed. It is important um, that we understand concepts of immortality and the kingdom of heaven uh, from a much broader perspective. And this broader perspective comes in place when we start to look at one another no longer from this narrow and shallow material perspective, but we are able to look at individuals for what they truly, truly are, from what their essence is. But where does the illusion of separation comes from? Where is the birth of this illusion? So, as I mentioned before, it's part of our natural evolution. It's born from this instinct of preservation that has prevailed in our humanity and is still very strong in our psychic. When Christ said to us, "Shine your light," most of us have turned this statement a little bit into the aim of our journey without understanding that uh, shining your light is not a goal that we have pursued, but it's more like the outcome of our own journey. In this stage of evolution where there's so much unconsciousness still, when we try to shine our light and we try very hard to do that, most likely what we'll be doing is turning the switch and turning on external light. That's the image of the bulb that you have there. Because our souls are still very disconnected from what is essential. And a lot of times our actions is driven by our egos. And our egos still identify others as competitors and as threats. Our ego is still very much in the business of surviving the other, in overriding the other. Now, the ego is not necessarily a bad entity, but it is a part of our psychic that is incredibly frail, often blind, wounded, and afraid. It is a part of our psychic that feels essentially small and quite often inadequate. It is a part of our psychic that lives in the world of illusion and scarcity, that feels like there isn't enough. It's always missing something. Therefore, we believe that the road for spiritual growth and enlightenment and connectedness, where no longer we're going to see others as different and distinct than us, and our neighbors will no longer feel as a threat, needs to actually be traveled within and through darkness. And it is time that we actually have the courage to do that, to take in the journey, the inward journeys, and to gently and lovingly try to touch into our own darkness, addressing our own fears and our insecurities, because our darkness is what makes us incredibly vulnerable at this time. And you may ask me, like so many people have asked me, how do you do that? So relationships are the entry door to this underground world that's not in our consciousness. It is time that we stop looking outwards, like the first master said, stop observing one's speck, and go to the second phase of our evolution, which is closing the eyes, to draw from our relating, to draw from our feelings and emotions a deeper understanding where we truly stand in our evolution and what our most inner needs are. When we think about the sun is lit by nature, by its nature, but it's going to shine more bright if there are no clouds around it. We are the same. We are, in essence, we are light. But our light will shine when we are able to remove the clouds that are blocking this light. So this light will shine more strongly the day that we are, for example, able to courageously recognize and embrace the hostile, the angry, the jealous, the envy, the selfish, the wounded person that we temporarily are. Light will shine more strongly the day that we are able to no longer deny or disavow the parts of us that we call and define as others than me. Let me talk to you about this for a second, right? So we have a lot of others within ourselves that we didn't that we wish they didn't really exist, and often we try to deny, not to see, or to eliminate. So, for example, when someone takes a position that we want very, very badly at our job, and we quickly label that person as ambitious, often we are denying our own ambition. It's easier to say that the ambition belongs to others, and in looking outwards, we fail to see, we deny our own humanity, our own ambition. The same way when we see someone using or purchasing a very nice, beautiful, expensive car, we might say, criticize that person, saying, how can someone buy a car that, uses so much gas? It is in our criticism a lot of times huge hints about our own humanity. Because when we do that, often calling that person names such as frivolous or shallow or ambitious or whatever that might be, we are again denying and disavowing our own desires to have that. Deep inside, we're denying our envy, our humanity. And if we had the resources, we probably would be doing the same thing. So realize that the other that we see outside and that we are quickly to label and separate is also the other that lives within. So progress will continue to be delayed as long as we deny our own humanity, ashamed of conditions and feelings that we believe to be unacceptable, turning our back to them and often numbing our own pain, the pain of our own humanity. So there is a sentence that I like very much that says, to ignore the human in us does not solve our vulnerability and does not end otherization. On the contrary, it reinforces it and solidifies it. Very well. So what do you do with that humanity, right? In first place, it needs to be acknowledged, and then it will be integrated. We acknowledge, we embrace, and we integrate, redirecting those energies in the path of goodness. So the day that we are able to identify and to accept the very human, raw state of consciousness that we still live in, we will no longer see others, and the earth will be gradually transformed. As we approach to an end, let me bring to you this figure, James Baldwin, who is one of the 20th century great writers, a powerful speaker, writer, and intellectual activist, that in 1962 he wrote, whatever white people do not know about Negroes reveals precisely and inexorably what they do not know about themselves. White people in this country will have quite enough to do in learning how to accept and love themselves and each other. And when they have achieved this, the Negro problem will no longer exist, for it will no longer be needed. This is so incredibly powerful. And I'm going to read again. So it says that whatever white people do not know about Negroes reveals precisely and inexorably what they do not know about themselves. White people in this country will have quite enough to do in learning how to accept and love themselves and each other. And the day they have achieved this, loving itself, right? The Negro problem will no longer exist, for it will no longer be needed. For it no longer will be needed. We have within us, all of us, many others. That can be psychological stances that we don't want to deal with, or it can be the many, many personalities that we have adopted through the course of reincarnations. When I ask you, who are you, right, truly, I would ask you to stop for a second and see if you can undress from all the labels that you have taken on this lifetime and have so deeply identified yourself with. Try practicing this today for a few moments. Stop for a second and ask yourself, who am I? And try to undress of the labels and feel. And if you feel perhaps a little discomfort during this exercise, right? A bit raw, I would say congratulations. The work has begun. Because as you connect to your world of feelings, your uh, your your position in this moment of life, your belief systems, not your labels, but where you are with your intellectual cognitive understanding the world, and the feelings that still prevail, your emotions, you should feel uncomfortable. If you don't feel uncomfortable, you need to stay still a little longer and let your subconscious and your unconscious speak to you a little bit more to get a sense of who you are. So we will need to embrace, to be courageous, to look at ourselves inwards, to embrace the others in us in order to end otherization. The end of otherization starts within and it will be reflected outside. As we embrace all this multitude of others within ourselves, we'll be ready to embrace the others outside. Do you know why? Because there are no others. They all will be an extension of ourselves. So I would say to you, right, just imagine for a second. Imagine that there is no heaven. It is easy if you try. No hell below us, above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there is no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religions too. Imagine all the people live in peace. You may say, I am a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger, a brotherhood of men. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I am a dreamer, but I am not the only one. I hope someday you will join us and the world will be as one. So I couldn't think of anything more appropriate to end our reflection today than these very wonderful, bright, inspiring words of John Lennon, closing our presentation for today. I hope that you enjoyed. Before I close, I would like to just remind all the people who are listening to us that our physical center, our space remains, although we are here in this virtual space. We continue to have our bills to pay, and if you are in a position, if you can contribute with our center, your contribution, no matter how small it is absolutely, absolutely appreciated. So please do so. Today I wasn't able to put our code here for the donations online, but they are present in our virtual presentations now. You can contact us. You can go to our website, and there is a way that you can make a contribution through PayPal. We truly, truly appreciate each one of you. It was wonderful to see everybody here. I will end by just asking God to bless us all, to bless our week, to help us all as we move forward, to be each day more and more loving, compassionate, and humble, to to embrace the very human in us without judgment, without prejudice, without separation, so that we can do that to every single person. Seeing the human and the divine in us will allow us to see that too in everybody else, and there will be no need for others. We will be one humanity. God help us to achieve this place so that we can live more in peace, both within and outside. A wonderful Sunday to all of you. Thank you for joining us. Please join us again next Sunday, and have a great day.